Hello, everyone, and welcome back to SLAPcast for another episode of our coverage of the 2023-24 season. I'm your host, Gage, as usual, and the Premier League is picking up speed as Matchweek 2 of 38 has come and gone, but not to worry, we are here to give you some Pulitzer-level coverage of that very thing. I'm here, of course, with my three trusted companions, counterparts, compatriots, whatever you want to call them. Hello, Reese.
Hello.
Hello, Ethan.
Happy beer.
Oh,
hello. Good to be here.
And Josh is back as well. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am feeling chipper. How is the house? Josh has moved into a new house.
House is good. It's like mostly come together. We bought a living room set the other day. We went to go buy dining room chairs, and we walked out with like $1,000 living room set. But it came with a couch, a love seat, a coffee table, 2 end tables, and 2 lamps. So it was really like a very good deal, but like was not wanting to buy a living room set. But now the couch is in the lounge where the bar cart is going to go. So I guess it didn't go to complete waste.
Well, there you go. Josh, I'm going to stick with you for now for the question of the day, which we must begin the show with.
So you don't have to pick a destination, but what is your ideal vacation? We went to Destin this weekend, so like kind of got that in mind, like the beach, mountains, a city, or what's your ideal vacation?
Like generally?
Generally.
I like not having stuff to do on vacation. At least like planned things. I think spontaneous things are fun. So I've been to a couple like all-inclusive resorts, and I really like those. I think those are fun because it's just open bar, unlimited all the time. You can like there's activities, but you could also just sit around and do nothing. I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I would say my dream vacation is probably just somewhere in the mountains where it's quiet. I am with Reese. I like to not really have a whole lot of things planned. I think, having a couple events planned is generally a good thing. You could go downhill mountain biking or zip lining or something in the mountains. Those are things that I really enjoy doing. But I really like the mountains because it's quiet and it smells nice. Mountain air is just different. So like sitting out on the porch in the mountains, like with a book or something where it's quiet outside and relaxing and no one will come bother you. That's my ideal vacation right there.
I mean, for me, easily, it's like, go to London or England in general, just to, watch soccer. But like, I've gone to Hawaii before. I enjoyed it. I haven't really done much stuff where it's like colder. So I'd be down to like go maybe up north in America, or I guess Europe in the colder spots. So anything like that.
Yeah, I think anything like surrounded, like where water is like involved. But Destin was like really nice because it's like really close and it's like drivable within like a morning or afternoon, which coming from Texas is like not a thing. But the sand got me. Like the sand was just like annoying me. So I think like the all-inclusive resort would be like the ideal one because you don't have to go to the beach. You just go to the pool.
Yeah.
You don't like sand.
It gets everywhere. It's coarse.
All right, gentlemen, let's proceed with our regularly scheduled programming at this time, which, as we mentioned at the start of last week's episode as well, we are going to be doing a little bit of segment roulette this season. If you missed last week, we did Chumps and Champs, which was a nice little exercise. Go check it out if you missed it. This week, we are going to be doing Smart Signing Central, which is where the transfer window is coming to an end this week, and we are going to give a little bit of assistance free of charge to the scouting departments around the league. I'm going to throw out a club, and we are all going to give the most astute signing that you can think of for that club. Now, the thing is, we're also going to be addressing what position or what quality is most needed in that team, and then how a player could possibly fill that need. So I'm going to start throwing out clubs, and we're going to start debating what is the most necessary player to sign here with 1 week left. Once this episode comes out tomorrow, on day of recording, the transfer window will close in 1 week. So clubs have got 1 week to finalize their business. We're going to start off with probably something of a softball a little bit, at least for Reese, because I'm starting with Arsenal, actually. So, Reese, let's start with Arsenal. Let's start with you because you are our resident Arsenal expert. So what do you guys need in the transfer window right now?
So I would have said striker 2 weeks ago, and then Timber got injured. So right now we need to get a Timber replacement just purely for depth at both center back and right back. So the player I chose is someone who has played in both positions, and I think also wouldn't be the most expensive player in the world. And it's a little shout out to Crystal Palace, actually, because I'm picking Chris Richards. I think he could do a job in it, backup center back and backup right back.
Interestingly enough, I actually picked center back and left back. I guess I don't know why. I guess just the Tierney exit was on my mind, and I was thinking, Zinchenko could slide into midfield, but also having that cover at left back, because Timber could also cover at left back from time to time. So I had that in mind as well. But I went with a player who profiles pretty similarly to Yuri and Timber and impressed for Ecuador at the World Cup, and that is Piero Hincapié of
I almost picked him.
Bayer Leverkusen, actually. So I think that'd be a good signing for Arsenal. The thing is, he is left-footed, and Arsenal do have Saliba, who's left-footed already. So that could be a detractor.
Saliba's right-footed.
But he plays on the left?
Gabriel's left-footed.
You're so right. I'm so wrong. Never mind. So Gabriel's left-footed. There were some rumors of him actually leaving, right? I know Arteta came out and said not really.
I think he's sticking around, but he just hasn't been playing that much right now. I think mainly because of the Timber injury. But
yeah, so I've gone for Hincapié. I think that would be a good signing.
It's funny you picked him. I was this close to picking him.
Really?
Yeah.
I was thinking about defense as well. I was thinking of someone who could play on the wing, but is not too expensive, but would be a good buy. And I was thinking of the teams who had went down last season, and Castan, Walker Peters, just cheap options like that you could probably get.
Walker Peters is interesting for sure. I think it's more interesting because he used to play for Tottenham, right? But yeah, I think we're all kind of in the same mind of fullback area. I guess we'll see what Josh says, but
I was there too. I was in between striker and defense in general. I was kind of looking through the squad, and y'all have a lot of players who are multifaceted in defense, who, if they need to, can play fullback. And I think long-term getting a striker who is a solid backup who can start and it not be a question if they can put in a shift would be more of a priority, just because Jesus just has not shown. He's shown that he is good when he's healthy, but he's shown that he's extremely injury prone. So I think a striker would probably be the best bet. I think Ian Nacho would honestly be a very good move because it'd be like £12 million. I think he would really flourish under Arteta because he's played as a hold-up striker as well. I think that would play into Martinelli and Saka and Odegaard style very well.
So I actually wrote down a name for striker as well, just kind of as a bonus. And my pick actually would have been Evan Ferguson. Although that would be a slight gamble. I think, he might benefit from a warmer season at Brighton to develop, but
he might be 200 million also. That might be the only negative.
Yes.
Next club on the list was Liverpool. Now, I thought this one was kind of a layup, but Josh and I were talking before we started the show, and we actually have different answers as far as what Liverpool needs. So that's kind of an interesting one. I am going to pass it to Josh first, actually, because I think his answer is more interesting.
So I was scrolling through, I was looking at their roster for this season, and their entire roster on Wikipedia almost fits into a phone screen, which is kind of ridiculous. And I think going forward and in the midfield, they have enough young players and mixed with some depth that I think that would be a good combination. But I think center back depth is where they're most lacking this season. I think that's where it's their like challenge for the top 4 is going to be most hurt. I think they just desperately need center back depth. It doesn't need to be someone who is going to start for them regularly, but just someone who can put a shift in against like one of the bottom feeder teams like Everton, or they can go play against the worst team in their European group. Just someone to put in a shift when needed. I did not write a player down for a lot of these because work got a little crazy, and I didn't start this like 2 hours ago, so I did not
That's
put a
fine.
player down.
Let's see if Reese agrees with me or agrees with Josh, or if he's a complete maverick.
I picked a DM.
Okay,
I know
yeah.
they just signed in Wataru Endo, I believe.
Yeah.
It's Wataru or Watari. I can't remember. Wataru Endo, but he's relatively unproven. And Josh was talking about depth. They've signed a DM, but he is now the only DM at the club.
And he's up there in age a little bit.
Yes, he's 30, I think, and
It is, yeah.
pretty unproven, like I was saying. So I picked a player. I think it's a very interesting pick. I think he fits Klopp's style really well and offers some versatility at fullback, and that's Joshua Kimmich.
Okay.
I could
Yeah,
just,
and he plays into the whole like creativity from the fullbacks role. Like he's
Yeah.
played both positions. He's very, great. What a great pick.
Thank you. I
So
was
I-
happy with that one.
Nice. I also went DM, and I think, all the things that Reese said. I think Endo, still unproven, but he looks to be okay. But he's up there in age already. I think they need someone long term to kind of hold that place down. So they've been linked with Decore, but I don't think that'll happen. I don't think it's a bad shout, but I think it will happen. I was thinking more of a Ibrahim Sangare from is it PSV, I think? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's young, he's very big, and he's got a lot of talent on the ball. So I think that would fit their style. I know his contract's pretty long, but money talks.
I won't echo any of the stuff that they already said because I am also going for defensive midfielder. I think they do have a good future option in Bajcetic, but I think he just needs some more time to develop before he's ready to take on a role in the starting 11. The fact that they were in for Lavia and Caicedo pretty much shows that they're willing to spend big on a midfielder this summer. So I've actually gone for something that may not be super realistic because I'm not sure if Fulham would be willing to let him go, but I've gone for João Palhinha. I think he would fit really nicely into the base of that Liverpool midfield. He's very aggressive, one of the top tacklers in the league, so I think he would fit in nicely with Liverpool's aggressive style. So that's who I've chosen for Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, I think at one point they were linked with him.
Yeah,
I'm sure they
I
were.
think they just got priced out.
Yeah, and he's still injured, right?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I think that's a good point. I don't remember seeing him playing the first 2 games, so I think you might be right about that.
But for future, for sure.
Next up, Ethan, it is your time to shine. I think this one's probably the one where we've all picked something very, very similar.
Yeah.
But Ethan, I'm curious to see who you've gone for.
Yeah, so I said winger / striker, maybe someone who could do a little bit of both. It's funny that Josh mentioned one of my guys earlier, but we've actually been looking at Iheanacho because we know he wants to move away. Another option, I have a few written down, but I'll go through them fast. Someone who's already worked with Roy and who doesn't seem to be getting much time at Nottingham Forest, but Emmanuel Dennis wouldn't be a bad shout. And then I think another one that would be really good, who seems like a very Palace player as to him being out of favor at Chelsea, and we seem to take all of Chelsea's players, but Hudson-Odoi.
Oh my God, I almost picked him. I was so close.
Has been talked about a lot. I know it's been either Fulham, Nottingham Forest, or us, but I think we fit his profile very well.
It's interesting that you say someone who could do a little bit of both striker or winger, because I actually kind of took the opposite approach, and I was thinking about Palace's options at forward, and I was thinking, well, they have players who can do, bit part roles around the front 3, players who've played up front and out wide, your likes of Ayew, your likes of Edouard even has played out wide at times. And I was thinking, Mateta is there, but let's be real, we need a different option than Mateta. So I was thinking, Palace needs a bona fide out and out striker who can support the likes of Elise. So this is a player who's actually been linked with West Ham in recent weeks, but I thought Palace could move in for a hijack deal. That's Yusuf En-Nesyri from Sevilla. He's a tall hold-up striker who could get in the box. He's dangerous in the air. He could link up play very well with the likes of Elise, with the likes of IU, like I was just mentioning. So I think, a move for a striker like that, someone who was also impressed on the international stage for Morocco as well. I think that could be a nice move for Crystal Palace. So and he's a little bit older, so I think the price wouldn't be super extreme.
Yeah, and I agree as well. But it's also like, we get injuries in like the wing spot and then the striker spot every so often. So it's kind of nice just to have that, cover for both. But then again, the ones that we do have now don't really do as well in both. So, but anyway.
So I've gone for a winger. I wrote some things down. I noted, obviously, I'll sign that guy. I think his name is Mateus Franca, right? Franca. I know he's a cam, but we know Roy has before, and Vieira continuously. Your managers continue to play Ezzy out of the wing sometimes. I foresee Franca playing out of the wing maybe, but
he's a winger.
Really?
Yeah.
Everything online said cam, but I was going to pick Hudson-Odoi, and then I decided that I wanted to pick someone slightly more proven because he just continued to get injuries in the Prem and kind of he hasn't really gotten a run in the Prem. It's been always in other competitions. Yeah. So I picked a player who was gathering a lot of traction a few years back and kind of fell off a bit. And I actually think it's more due to the club just kind of getting worse. And I think maybe could be available on the cheap, especially next year if they get relegated, and that is Pedro Neto.
Yeah,
I think he could have a little bit of a revival at Palace.
I like it. I was always impressed with him.
So I had the same thing. I won't go like super into any of the reasons, but I think striker and winger is I think especially winger, I think that would be even more because right now it's IU and Schlupp, and that is a little terrifying. So honestly, I think coming from Leicester, I think Daka might be a good option because he's also been linked with a move out. I think like you could probably get him for 10 million or less. But I think he would be good because he's so pacey, he can also play on the wing too as a pretty good forward.
Yeah, I think we've definitely have interest in both of Leicester's attackers. Yeah, I agree with what y'all say. I think I can be more forgiving of IU because he seems to put in a shift every now and then, but Schlupp in the wing is just that's nuclear. That's
a violation.
That's not football. So I've watched him go from left back to midfield to left wing, so I'm seeing it all. But yeah.
Let's move on to a club that I think is one of the more interesting conversations because there are a number of positions that you could have chosen for this. I think there are several areas that they definitely need to strengthen. And that's Man United. Now, I kind of had a hard time picking a player specifically for them, but I've ended up choosing, I think they could do with signing another player who can out and out play on the left of the front three. And because I think, their options are being reduced because Greenwood, they've finally decided that they're not going to bring him back after getting smoked with their nothing statement, like Reese said they would. They have, Anthony spent 100 million on him. He is not producing at the levels that they want him to. He might also be a sex offender, which is still something to come out. And so they're going to need people on the left. I wasn't super impressed by Garnacho against Spurs. I wasn't impressed with him when they played Wolves. So I've gone with someone who is linked with a move away from Barcelona in certain circles, and that's Ansu Fati. I think he is someone who possibly wanted away from Barcelona, possibly was, had a state of malcontent with the manager. He's a young player who could develop, but he has been proven at the highest stage. He's done pretty well for Barcelona in certain circumstances. So I think someone like him could come in and potentially be a huge boost to their attack. So I've gone for Ansu Fati.
I've gone with an attacking-minded player as well, although in a different position. I also was kind of thinking winger at first. And then what I kind of settled on was that when Højlund is fit, Rashford will go out on the left and Antony is going to stay on the right. So what I went for actually is a someone who profiles as a cam, because I just don't think Mason Mount is very good. I don't think it was a good sign up. And also my theme has kind of been versatility. This player also offers some versatility because he can play across the front three as well, and that's Gio Reyna. I think he profiles actually very similarly to what people think Mount is good at, except Gio Reyna is actually good at. And yeah, I think he would really link up the midfield and the attack really well.
Good shout. I was also thinking in the realm of attack, even though I said experienced striker because, you know, Hoyland, you know, pretty young, hasn't had too much game time, is still injured right now. And this is a funny thought when I was thinking earlier. I said, what about a cheeky Lukaku loan back to United? But no, that'd be ridiculous. But I thought this one would actually be interesting. I don't know how reluctant Dortmund would be to sell him, but he's Dutch. He was in the Ajax academy at one point, but Daniel Malin, I think that's how you say it. But he definitely seems like a player that could work well with Ten Hag.
I agree they need something in midfield. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a attacking midfielder though. I think they need someone to pair up with Casemiro to allow a double pivot, because I think the best United we've seen in recent years is when Pogba was, depending on who was in midfield, or Fred and McTominay. When Fred and McTominay were actually good, a double pivot being created with them, I think, was the best form of them. I think one player who's been linked with United for a few different times, I think Safjan Amrabat would be a great pick to go, because he's stuck at Fiorentina. I think they would get a pretty decent price for him. I think he'd balance out pretty well with Casemiro, because Casemiro has shown that he can go forward decently well, even though he tends to hold back. I think Amrabat is similar. I think they need a little bit more strength in defense as well, just because they have had so many moving pieces this summer.
This is kind of going back a second because I had to Google it to make sure I wasn't tripping. But fun fact about Daniel Malin or Malin, or however you say it, Ethan, he also featured for us at youth level as well. He was in both Arsenal and Ajax youth academy.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Let's move on to Spurs. I think, Reese, interestingly enough, you said that you kind of struggled with this one. So I'm curious to hear, you know, what your thoughts were on that, at least why you were having a hard time choosing.
Yeah, so I actually think right now your squad is really balanced. I think Postecoglou has done a really good job in the transfer market and I think he has addressed your problem areas already. So the one area I'm not sold on is striker. I'm not sold on Richarlison. I wasn't last year. I'm still not. And so I actually wrote down Evan Ferguson again. I think you brought him up actually a couple podcast episodes ago and said he profiles very similarly to Kane, which I think is true. And the game is kind of trending towards that big striker who's just also good with his feet, which Evan Ferguson is. I did write a couple other names down that I think are similar. Although Evan Ferguson, I'll say, was my primary pick just because he's also really young. And I think you could kind of build the attack around him. The other picks, though, Ivan Toney, when he's
who has been linked to us,
again,
actually. Yeah.
And Tammy Abraham, although I think he would probably end up being the most expensive, maybe him or Toney. Ferguson will cost a lot too, but they're all kind of probably expensive. But yeah. I did have Tammy Abraham as well. I think Ethan may have had him. So Ethan.
Yeah, he was one of my choices. I put down another one too. I thought Kolo Muani. I don't know too much about him, but he would be interesting. I know he was in the France squad for the World Cup.
World Cup. Yeah, he started the final.
And I think he looked pretty decent. I think in terms of you know what you need, you know, Richarlison, he's a good player and he's Premier League proven, but I think he's going to struggle a little bit to fill that role that Kane had. So I think it's safe to say that you'll need a striker at some point. And I saw the links to Brendan Johnson from Nottingham Forest, and I think it wouldn't be a bad option. I feel
for
like
50 million, they're having a laugh.
Yeah,
I just think he's better on the wing as well.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So yeah,
also agree, and I was having an awful time trying to figure out who, because I feel like because I think the Richarlison experiment is, hopefully it gets better with the new manager, but I just, the club not just like failure to produce over the last like season just has, I think y'all need something new, and I was really struggling to find one because I feel like a lot of very good strikers have been moved around this summer, and there's not a whole lot left that would be to the caliber that Spurs need, but also are cheap enough to like realistically buy with the strategy that y'all seem to impose this summer. So I did not pick one because I could not figure one out.
Fair enough. I unsurprisingly went for striker as well. Echo what the guys said about Richarlison. I took a slightly different approach because Postecoglou in his previous systems has always enjoyed a smaller striker who's capable of running in behind and getting on to line breaking passes. So I was kind of thinking in that mold, sort of thinking of players that we've been linked in, recently. We were actually linked to the player I did pick back in 2021 when we first thought Kane was going to leave. Now he would be pretty expensive, but Inter do need the funds. So I've gone for Lautaro Martinez, actually. He could come in and link up with the fellow Argentines in the squad as well. And he profiles nicely as he's a small striker, low center of gravity, can dribble, can run in behind. Yeah, I think he would be perfect in the Postecoglou system. So he was my
That'd
choice.
be such a statement too, because it's so opposite of Kane.
Yeah, exactly. Now, here's another one that Ethan actually sent us a text. You were struggling so much that you actually sent us a text about it earlier, about how much you were struggling to choose a player.
I was losing my mind because, well, we're talking about Newcastle is what we're talking about. I was having a hard time because it's like before the transfer window opened, I could probably, make a few notes about who they need to sign, but I feel like they went ahead and signed those players in the last few weeks. I mean, they got in a lot of cover for areas where I feel like the spot is like taken up for the moment. So a lot of things for the future. But then I also saw about how much deadwood they have, just like players who are never going to start. Jeff Hendrick is still in the books for, I think, Newcastle, and just like a lot of players that, I don't think will ever get in, like Matt Frazier or Matt Ritchie or Ryan Frazier. I'm sorry. But so I was kind of thinking of like a player who could like at least come in, maybe not start, but could provide cover in like cup games and stuff like that. I went for Nonto from Leeds, or the player who's been linked on a move out. I feel like that's something they would scarf up.
Yeah. And there's been some questions about Almiron's ability to perform at the highest level. So that could be another option to bring in and rotate with him if that is the question. So.
Yeah. So I thought about Almiron, but then I kind of mentioned on the podcast that maybe you could play Gordon and Barnes together. And so then I was like, maybe not. And so then I was looking at left back for Dan Burn, although Gage was saying that Lewis Hall has probably been brought in to be the left back. So, which he's still unproven, but they've signed somebody very recently for that position. So I was like, I don't know. And like Ethan, I was like, I feel like they've addressed their problem areas. Mm-hmm. So what I actually went with was, I think they should sign a depth position. And what I decided was an understudy to Trippier, because he's so integral to the team, and he's 34.
What if I told you that they did sign an understudy to Kieran Trippier?
Who?
Livramento.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I know they signed Livramento, but I don't think he profiles like Trippier. That's
fair enough.
I'm thinking someone more, because Livramento's kind of big. I think he's 6 foot.
Sure.
Something like that. I don't know. I was thinking somebody small, quick, or not small, but someone quick and someone who's very cross reliant. Livramento, I don't think was a big.
He's quite a bit more direct for sure, but
so I have 2 names written down. The first one, James Justin. I think getting a move away from Leicester, and maybe I think I've always felt like he was kind of thrust into starting too early, and that he needed to just kind of be a rotational player for a while, study under somebody, and then get his moment.
I don't really think that was the issue with him. Is he tore his ACL twice and was out for like 2.5 out of the last 3 years.
Yes, and I think part of the reason is because out of nowhere, y'all were required to play him every
Well, that's
game.
because Ricardo Pereira got his leg broke.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. He was thrust
Like he
into
was
it and had
fine
to
when he
play
was
every
starting,
game.
though. But he was starting every game. That was the issue.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Josh.
Kind of.
That's what I said. I said he needs to not start.
No,
every
but like he
game.
didn't even have a backup to play in like rotation level games.
I know. That's what
I'm
I'm
not saying the
saying.
same thing.
That's what I said. I think he needs to be an understudy and just develop a bit, and then Josh, he won't have to play every game. That's what I was saying.
He was fine until he okay, and it's not like it was a hamstring. It's not like it was a hamstring injury. He tore his ACL on a bad tackle the first time and was competing for an England call up to the Euros. And then his knee exploded because somebody slid into his knee.
The other name I have written down is Jed Spence, who I think may be injured right now, but
no, he's just he might be.
I think he might be injured right now. But yeah, I think he was a player that looked really promising and then just kind of was never utilized under Conte. Did he go on loan or was he just never played?
No, he was on loan at Stad Rennes.
He was on loan, but now y'all signed Porro, who presumably is the long-term option there. So I think he could do maybe with a move away. And yeah, I think a player like that who profiles more like Trippier, because I just don't know if Livermento's it. I think he's a great player, but I don't know if he's the guy.
So I sort of forgot that I had made that statement about Lewis Hall coming in to be their left back. And so I chose a left back. Now, what I will say is he's 18. So, there is opportunity for another player to, come in and provide an alternative to Lewis Hall. And yeah, Dan Burn is there. But realistically, if you look at their current starting 11 as it's, notated down, I think Dan Burn is probably the weakest player there, at least from a technical standpoint. He does offer some different things with his size, but I do think he's probably the weakest player on paper. So I have chosen a player. Admittedly, this is my weakest one because I immediately chose this player, went and looked and realized he'd been signed by Bayern already this window. So they're not signing him. But I've chosen Rafael Guerrero, formerly of Borussia Dortmund, who is a, very top of the line deliverer. I looked to check this out, and he's in the 97th percentile for progressive passes among fullbacks. 30 goals in 160 appearances for Dortmund, which I think is crazy. So it's just a shame that Bayern already signed him, and I was too lazy to come up with another alternative. So
I mean, there was already a few that I had written down, but I had to go look it up, and they had already signed for other teams. So you're not alone.
Mine did not sign for another team. I did not pick a position for this one. The last three, I did not pick a position for. I think they need a superstar or a potential superstar in the next 2 to 3 years, because I think to continue where we went wrong when we started making these progressions, where we didn't have the money to sign a superstar. They do, because the Saudis got it like that. And I think they should go out and sign Rafael Leao from AC Milan.
Okay.
I think that would be a massive. I love Almiron. He's just a great human being and just like a good person, but also a very good footballer. And I just think they need a superstar on the wing that's going to assist a lot and score a lot. I think he has the potential to do that for them, and they have the money to actually do it. So
this next club is slightly tongue-in-cheek because they have more signings under Todd Boehly than they do wins in the Premier League under Todd Boehly. And yes, that is a real stat.
More than double, by the way.
Yeah, which is insane. But we are going to talk about Chelsea because, for whatever reason, they still haven't figured out how to build a coherent squad with 30 signings. So I'm curious to see what you guys have picked. I feel like there could be several options here as well. Another one that could be intriguing. So I'm going to start with Ethan on this one. I'm curious to see what you have to say.
So looking throughout their team, I realized just, with all these players coming in, they're still super young. they're great players, but you're very young. The one player who is experienced in this area is 39 or is going to be up there is Thiago Silva. So I was thinking, you know, they probably need an experienced defensive player. And so I thought, you know, might not happen this window, but it's definitely something that I feel like could happen if Pochettino is still in charge. But I went for Kim Pembe because they both spent time together at PSG.
So I thought about going center back as well, but I think mainly I was thinking to replace Thiago Silva because he's almost 40, like you were saying. But I think once they decide at some point to play 3 midfielders, they're going to drop them and play center backs of Disasi and
Colwell.
Colwell. So I think that's kind of already in the works. That was my thinking. Where I turned to, again, similar to Newcastle, was kind of a potentially rotational player, but somebody who would start for now because of some injuries. Because in the most recent game, Chukwuemeka got injured and it was looking like he was going to be starting. So now I think I wrote his name. Madueke is going to be starting in that position. So I was kind of thinking attacking player. Now, all that to say, I ended up going with a Cam because I know they've just signed a bunch of midfielders, but I don't like the balance of it. If they do 3, it's like either Enzo, Caicedo, and Lavia, or Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, or
It's very
some
defensive.
kind of, it's very defensive. So I think they could do with a Cam. And the setup for that was that I think Madueke can play Cam, but now he's going to have to fill in on the wing. I think Nkunku can play Cam, but they played him in preseason as striker and he's injured. So I've gone with another American because I think they could get him on the cheap with them being relegated, and that's Brendan Aronson.
He's at Union Berlin.
Never mind.
I thought the same thing for a different club.
I also went in midfield for them, I think, but I didn't put like midfield in general. I put a captain, which not necessarily to go buy someone to come in and be a captain, but someone who's going to come in and like shift their culture enough and like within 9 months be like, okay, this is our captain, because Reese James, you cannot be hurt for 2/3 of the season and be the captain like that. You're not going to be effective. So I was thinking someone who's a little bit older, because I think their best signing in the last like 2.5 years was Thiago Silva, because he
Absolutely
started to change the culture and then got hurt because he's 37. He was 36 at the time. I put Marcos Llorente from Atletico Madrid. I think he would balance out the midfield enough because he is very box to box, can defend when needed, can be an attacking midfielder, not the entire game, but when it's needed. I think he would bring enough of a culture change to Chelsea to at least lead the younger players a little bit more from the front, because Thiago Silva can't really do that because he doesn't have the wheels on him anymore to play that much.
So I went with a kind of unconventional option, I think. I still think after all this time that they need a striker. I still think after all this time that they need a striker. And the reason I say that,
with a striker too.
I know they have Nico Jackson and I know they have Nkunku, but again, it's kind of like what I feel about Palace. All of their forward players are just like these nondescript sort of unknown forward players.
They're like attacking players.
Yeah, it's like they don't have a defined role. And I think they need someone who can just play as a striker, be an aerial threat, be horrible to play against, someone who can come in and just score. Like, he may not do that much else, but he will score goals. And I think the player that I've selected for that, and this is kind of a crazy shout, but I've gone for Taiwo Awoniyi from Nottingham Forest, who scores a lot of goals in a team that doesn't create that many chances. He had 10 goals last season for Nottingham Forest. He's excellent in the air, as we've seen.
He's 2 for 2 this year, I think.
Exactly. He's 2 for 2 this year. Gets on the end of crosses like nobody's business. His movement is great in the box. He's huge. So he's actually only 6 foot. I looked it up to see how big he was, but he's only 6 foot. But he looks bigger. Huge. Yeah. And he has an insane vertical. So, like I said, he's very good in the air. he's just someone that I think they could bring in, and maybe they don't have to start him every game, but he kind of reminds me of Olivier Giroud a little bit, because when Chelsea signed Giroud, we were all kind of thinking, oh, what a random signing. Like, he's kind of old, kind of washed. And then he ended up scoring 1,000 goals because he scores wherever he goes. So I kind of think it's sort of something like that for Awani. So next up, we wanted to go ahead and talk about Leicester as well, for Josh's sake, just because, of course, it is quite tragic that Leicester are in the championship this season. However, they are 3 wins from 3 so far, and things are looking up. Your squad is impressively balanced for the championship, which I think is something that we all came across. Now, I'm going to go first because I said my pick, or well, actually, I didn't say anything. And we were talking about it before the show, and Josh was like, well, I don't really know what we need, but it's not a center back. And I was like, well, that's crazy because I picked a center back. Because because I don't really rate Wout Faes very much. I thought he struggled a lot in the Premier League. And yes, I know he's in the championship now, but I still just think someone with experience in England is a better option to him. Maybe Josh, you might feel differently, but I don't rate him that highly. I know Connor Cody's going to come back into the team, but you would think he's going to replace Vestergaard. So I've gone for a homer pick, actually, and y'all might laugh at this, but I've actually gone for Japhet Tanganga. I think he is someone who is solid on the ball, is a constant threat from set pieces, and can dribble. And I think in the championship, that's a winning combo, especially with the way Leicester are going to play. So I've gone for Tanganga. Kind of a homer pick, but,
No, I almost picked the center back as well, but then I had looked and they had I'm kind of like you. I'm not too big on Foz, but they do have Connor Cody now, and I forgot they had Sudar, and I think he'll be decent in the championship. I was thinking more of like, the forwards because, Iheanacho and Daka have both been linked away. You'll still have Vardy. Y'all signed someone else who I think scored already for y'all, but I don't know his name.
Oh, Cassadai from Chelsea on loan.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's this other guy. He had a weird name.
Oh, are you talking about Matavidua? Because I think he's
Yeah.
an academy player, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking it'd be good if y'all had like another forward on loan in case, something happens with Vardy because, he's up there in age.
We just hit the release clause for a winger from Galatasaray, Yunus Akugin. So,
well, I striker. I thought Armando Broya would be on loan, would be very good. Get some time because I know he's not going to get it at Chelsea. So I thought that'd be a good pick.
I also went for a striker, although admittedly it was partially because I had forgotten to pick one for Leicester. And so right before the show, I asked Josh to give me a position and then I picked a player from there. But I was trying to think of a player who, in my eyes, profiles similar to Vardy, kind of the Vardy replacement once he goes. I don't know how realistic it is because it is a direct rival for promotion, and that would be Joe Gelhardt from Leeds.
I thought about him as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I did not pick a position. I said we need experience because I think signing all these young players is good, but I think for the very long grind of the championship, we need to be able to have someone to hold it down. I don't really know who that would be. I kind of struggled to find someone for us to sign.
Fair enough. All right, we will leave behind our mystery segment there, and we will be back again next week with another segment. So keep your eyes tuned, keep your eyes peeled for that. Now, it is time to talk about some Premier League action, fellas. Let's get right down to it. Now, here's something else I didn't tell you, by the way. I've got a quiz question related to every single fixture this week. So we're going to start off with that just quickly. The first one, of course, is that we're going to talk about at least is Liverpool's 3-1 victory over Bournemouth. Now, before we begin, and we don't have to spend too long on this game because there are some talking points, but nothing too interesting. Here's the question. What 3-letter winger left Anfield to sign for Bournemouth for a club record transfer fee in July of 2016?
Ibe.
Jordan Ibe is the correct answer.
Nice.
Good shout by Ethan. Okay. I think one of the biggest talking points in this for a couple of reasons, not just from refereeing perspectives, because we can sit here and talk about the referee all day, but what I'm more interested in is what it actually did. So, of course, the key point in this game was Alexis McAllister getting sent off for what is admittedly a questionable offense. Straight red seems harsh. I would be shocked if it didn't get overturned in appeal.
It did already.
It did already. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. What it did do, however, is introduce Wataru Endo to the midfield. And I think you can see just from his initial performance how much of a difference it makes to have a player like that who's somewhat press resistant, who can dribble out, who can break up play. So I'm curious to know, Reese, as we are continuing with our SpongeBob watch, what you thought of the balance of their midfield after the red card compared to last week, because I know that you had a complaint about that in their first game.
So at times they still got a little exposed, but I actually don't think it was the midfield composition. It was more that, they're down a man now. And I actually think notably for me, at least, was that when Endo was on the field, I had less that I noticed with their midfield, which sometimes is a symptom of a good DM, right? They kind of go under the radar, and you only notice them when they make mistakes. I thought, on that note, before he was introduced, for large portion of this game, honestly, until the sending off, or I guess until Liverpool scored their second, I would say, I thought they were just, their midfield again looked unbalanced. I thought a lot of Bournemouth's chances and their goals came from either midfield mistakes or something along that nature, with just the midfield kind of being played through pretty easy. And so that was the main thing for me, was that when Endo wasn't on the field, I really noticed the midfield composition. And when he was, it was just kind of like, okay, like it was the scales were like this, and now they're like balanced a little bit.
I also thought it was interesting. It's one of those rare occasions where the red card almost galvanizes the team that had a sending off, because immediately we had Liverpool basically swarmed in to try to get a third goal to kill the game off. It ended up being a SpongeBob shot that came back. I gotta quit calling him that. A Szoboszlai shot that ended up being saved, and it came out into the path of Jota.
Please don't stop. That cracks me up every time.
It was a SpongeBob shot that
I'm a sucker.
Ricocheting out. But yeah, honestly, I didn't have too many other points on that game. I was mostly interested in dissecting their midfield composition. So unless you guys have another note, please say it now.
I wrote some notes. Let me see. A lot of that was related to DM. I said, before the introduction, they looked like they needed a DM.
Diaz's goal.
Yeah, Luis Diaz.
Oh,
man.
yes.
That's something I wrote down. He looks, because he got injured last season and then was reintroduced in the side back in April and didn't quite look up to par towards the end of last season. He looks back. Like, he looks like the player he was before the injury. I think preseason did a lot of good for him.
I'll tell you who else looks back. Mo Salah. That guy is back. Because not only did he, have a lot of really great direct attacking play, there were a couple of disguise balls that he played in that game that I could not believe. There were some absolute, just incredible passes that, come on, that I could not believe I was watching Mo Salah play. So this guy's balls. So anyway, yeah. Any other points for Liverpool Bournemouth?
That was all I had.
All right. I'm going to move on and yammer for a little bit about Spurs. But before I do, I've got another question. And now this one, I'll be surprised if any of you get immediately, but maybe you do. Maybe you will, is what I mean. On May 14th, 2017, which Man United legend scored the final ever goal at White Hart Lane?
Wayne Rooney.
It was Wayne Rooney. It was indeed Wayne Rooney. It was a 2-1 win for Spurs, but Rooney got a consolation goal at the very end. So good shot by you. Okay. I am going to pose you a juxtaposition, which is Postecoglou Spurs and Ten Hag's Man United. I think the interesting thing about this is that Postecoglou has been here for 2 days and has already created a club with an identity, a stylistic fingerprint, if you will, a motivation, a reason for being, and Ten Hag still has really not. I mean, could you confidently tell me what United's identity is as a club right now, or what their tactical mojo is, for example? I mean, what is their style
I
of
thought
play?
they looked decent in possession. I thought their main issue in this game was that they just couldn't finish any of their chances. They signed a striker, but he's injured.
Very true. And I will acknowledge, I even wrote this down. I think Spurs lucky not to be down at halftime, because not only there was the Bruno Fernandes header, which ended up being onside.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, nothing short of a sitter, basically. And then, of course, there was the penalty claim, which United fans are quite up in arms about, the one where Romero was hit. For me, I will say, I agree that it's not a penalty, but I'm surprised it wasn't given. That's what I'll say.
They've given those before, for sure.
Yeah. So
But
whenever
they've
that was
also not
happening,
given them before. There's just kind of no consistency with that call.
Yeah.
Because it's so ambiguous, right? But
when it was happening, I was absolutely certain it was going to be a penalty.
if it happens against us, like if it's our player, I'm like, no, it's not a penalty. But if it's like on the other team, I'm like, yeah, it's a penalty. Right? It's one of those.
I think I lean towards it actually being more of a penalty than not, to be honest with you. Even with my Spurs hat on, I think I was shocked. But then there was another one in the second half where Lisandro Martinez absolutely destroyed Christian Romero in the box, and it didn't get called. So, you know, you
Make up call.
take some, you leave some. Yeah. The other thing I want to point out is that I've just finished drafting an email to the Department of Homeland Security identifying Antonio Conte as a terrorist organization for failing to play Yves Bissouma. How in the world can you tell me that this guy was not ready because he doesn't understand the tactical aspect? How can you tell me that? This guy is seriously the best Spurs midfielder I've seen since Moussa Dembele. He's electric to watch. The guy's ridiculous. He skinned Casemiro alive several times in this game. Champions League winning, Real Madrid, La Decima, whatever you want to say, best defensive midfielder in the world for a time, skinned him alive on a plate like John the Baptist. It was crazy. It was absolutely insane.
Was John the Baptist skinned alive on a plate?
John the Baptist
he was beheaded on a plate.
Homeland Security. A lot of names being thrown around.
Anyway, I just wanted to point out all of that dramatism is just to say that Yves Bissouma is seriously good.
The transition of John the Baptist being skinned alive. Anyway,
Yves Bissouma is seriously really good midfielder. He is. I was so impressed with our entire midfield in this game. Obviously, Pat Matar Sarr scoring his first goal for Spurs. The South Stand absolutely exploding when that goal went in, by the way. Superb stuff from the fans. Apart from the fact that they were randomly throwing like crumpled up paper onto the field the entire game, which was very odd. Not really sure why they were doing that, but anyway.
Shout out to Vicario.
And Vicario, dude, he had a great game, I thought. To be completely honest with you, I thought he was really assured, made a couple of great acrobatic saves, good distribution, which is something I haven't seen from a Spurs goalkeeper in a long time. Yeah, maybe ever, actually. Yeah, since I've been watching. So, and then James Maddison is just a joy to watch. He is someone who, I know, I'm sorry, Josh, but he looks like someone that belongs at Spurs. Josh. He looks like someone who belongs at Spurs. I think we were talking about, Tonali wearing the Newcastle kit. You're killing me. He's talking about Tonali wearing the Newcastle kit. Well, James Maddison is someone who wears the Spurs kit really well. He's still getting lower. Anyway, I thought that United looked extremely dude.
Josh, come back.
He's like, it's like quicksand. He's sinking in quicksand.
Did he fall?
I don't know. I'm trying to move on.
He just shot down. Josh, are you okay?
We need a signal from him. There he is. He's he's gone again. Anyway, I thought that halftime really changed the game as well, because United came out and looked what I would describe as listless. I think there was a lot of idle play in midfield from them. I think a lot of, Spurs just seem to win every single second ball. And then the goal, honestly, I thought the goal, even though it was in, the 49th minute or something, it killed the game for most of pretty effectively, because United did not look much. Well, apart from the fact that Antony hit the post immediately after we scored, I thought it pretty much killed the game because United didn't have anything going for them after that. Even when Eriksen came on, just didn't create much. Even in the final minutes when Spurs were kind of backed up against the wall, I still wasn't really worried, I have to say. So, other than that, I just wanted to point out that there was some good game management, good substitutions from Postecoglou, which is another thing that I'm not used to at Spurs. Udogie and Sarr both looked pretty fatigued. Udogie was on a booking. I think the decision to bring on Davis, Perisic, Højbjerg, the likes of them for some more experienced heads, I thought was a great decision with 15 minutes to go in the game. Really killed it off. Of course, those two of those substitutes combined for the second goal, along with Lisandro Martinez shanking it into his own net, which is a nice gift. A goal and an assist on both of our goals, by the way, for Lisandro Martinez, because the Kulusevski cross deflected off him and then landed at the foot of Sarr. So other than that, truthfully, I don't have too much else to mention. Just the fact that it feels like I have my Spurs back.
I had
Which
2 note points I wanted to bring up.
Yes.
The second one's a question, so I'll do that last. The first one, I wanted to just bring up Pedro Porro's position, because there was moments in this game where he was making late runs into the box like an advanced 8.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of the Postecoglou system too, is that inverted fullback who really cuts into the box. I will say Porro at times got caught upfield. There was one in particular where Onana came practically out to the halfway line and played a ball over the top to Garnacho. And I tweeted even, I was like, you cannot allow that ball to land at feet. Like, Porro was in a different postal code at that time. You can't allow that pass to get there. Nothing came of it, and so it was fine. But yeah, he loves to make runs into the box. Udogie too. Both of them love to appear on the edge of the box. So yeah.
The other one I had is more of a question, and this is just kind of like a looking down the line thing. And you've kind of mentioned it before that y'all are very, very attacking in this formation and tactically, so you just have to outscore your opponents. Does the game plan change when you play like a Man City or even like a Newcastle, who are, I would say at this moment, slightly more clinical than United? Because if United had finished their chances, like just looking at high quality chances too, like it could have been like 5 goals.
Oh yeah. And they absolutely blew us out of the water on XG as well. Like, it wasn't even close. So I think the thing about Postecoglou is I kind of think the answer to your question is actually most likely no, because I think he's the kind of guy who will just stick to his principles regardless of, I think to be honest, I was surprised to see Porro start over Emerson in this game even, because I think, United, while they have their problems, are still a very strong opposition. And I thought Emerson was one of our weaker players against Brentford, but he scored and he's, defensively sound more so than Porro for sure. But no, he went for Udogie and Porro, the 2 most attacking options, instead of Davis and Emerson Royale. So the only thing is maybe he would opt to play Emerson Royale and or Ben Davis in that role to offer some more defensive cover in that situation. But I think it's more likely that he's going to stick to his principles and City are going to put 5 past us, to be completely honest. I think that's more likely. But I'm okay with that as long as it looks like we're moving in the right direction.
He's banking on y'all's record against City.
He might be, dude. There's something magic about us playing them at that stadium, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So you never know. Another thing I wanted to point out, by the way, Mason Mount had 16 completed passes in the entire game. So yeah, for your creative midfielder, that enough said. Any further points on Spurs, gentlemen?
You got your Spurs back, cowboy.
I do, and it's a lovely feeling. Another game, by the way, that I want to not spend a whole lot of time on is Aston Villa's demolition of Everton, because I think what it boils down to is Villa are a good team and Everton, quite frankly, are not. But there is a quiz question.
Okay.
Other than Ashley Young, what was the last direct transfer between Aston Villa and Everton? And that could be going either way.
El Ghazi. I'm
Oh, dear.
struggling.
The rat boy. What's his name? The
The
fullback.
rat boy.
Are you meaning Lucas Dean?
Yeah, Digne.
Luca Dean is the correct answer. Yeah. Yeah. And now, okay, actually, hold on. I just looked on Wikipedia to verify which was correct. They signed on the same day,
Wow.
El Ghazi and Luca Dean. So you're both correct. You're actually both 100% correct, which is absolutely crazy.
That's insane.
I literally just went and looked. January 13th, 2022. They signed on the same day.
Wow.
So-
Was it a swap? Were they involved in a swap deal or something?
I don't know. I mean, no, because El Ghazi was on loan and Dina was a permanent. So, I mean, I'm sure they were negotiating, I mean, if they're in talks for one, they're probably talking about the other,
That's
right?
true,
But
yeah.
I don't think they were linked necessarily from a clerical perspective. But
That's crazy.
anyway, yes. Great work from both of you to come up with the two correct answers, even though I knew there was only one. So here's a thing I wanted to ask of you, Reese, quickly before we begin. And that's just, well, not before we begin, but you are someone who is a former acolyte, understudy, perhaps, of a team who was managed by Unai Emery.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask sort of what are some of the key upsides that you see in this Villa team from him? And I might be putting you on the spot here. So, if you need some time to think, that's fine. And then what are some of the downsides that can come into play from Unai Emery's style as well?
So similar to Postecoglou, actually, his kind of philosophy when he was at Arsenal was just outscore the opponent, which didn't happen that often. His first season, it happened a couple of times, but he kind of had a bad turn of form at the end. It's whatever. At Villa, I think it's very similar because I think all of the bright spots in the team are in the attack, and if there's cracks or weak spots, I think it's in the defense. I know they've just signed that new center back that I'm forgetting his name.
Pau Torres.
Yeah, Pau Torres. He's warming up. He's got to get ready. Obviously they had an injury to Tyrone Mings, but I don't know. I don't know about him either when he's fit, to be honest. I think he kind of, before his injury in the opening game, I think he kind of got flamed. So definitely the defensive aspect of this team is a lot worse than the attack. I was trying also to figure out why they lost the Newcastle game so bad and then won this game by so much, besides Everton being bad and Newcastle being good. And my decision was the midfield double pivot, because McGinn is kind of out on the wing-ish. So they have two players in midfield who just completely got outnumbered and outclassed in the Newcastle game. And they were outnumbered in this game, but they're much better than Everton. So I think that was my decision. But to answer your question anyway, I think the defense is a little suspect.
Sure. I also wanted to point out the renaissance of one Leon Bailey, by the way, who is now proving why they paid the money for him. I think he had some injury riddled seasons, a couple of seasons where maybe he, wasn't getting the consistent game time that he needed. I think now we're going to see him start to consistently be involved in the team, especially with a performance like the one he just put in. So
interestingly, I believe Diaby was signed they're both from Leverkusen, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I believe he was signed for Leverkusen to replace Bailey, and then was signed for Villa, which people thought maybe he was replacing Bailey again, but they've formed a really nice partnership on that right side.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff as well. Anyone else have a point on either? Well, actually, Everton I'm more interested in now because we talked a good deal about Villa. So
I wrote
Josh,
down Everton. Sorry, I have 1 point on that.
Go ahead.
In quotes, Everton are crap and have no tactical identity. That's all. That's all I have.
Well, I was basically going to ask Josh. I mean, I think you had Everton finishing bottom, right? How much of the opening their opening results, opening games, the fact that they have yet to score. Oh, no, they did score a goal in this game, didn't they? Or am I losing
One.
it?
They scored one.
They scored one. They
Not in
scored
this
one
game.
goal. They've
No,
not scored a
I thought it
goal
was
so
4-1.
far this season. And
It's 4-0.
Oh,
am I tripping? Have they scored a goal this season? Whatever. It doesn't matter. All right. Is your point about them finishing last reaffirmed? At
They have
this
not.
time? Okay. Yeah. They've not scored a goal.
They have not scored a goal all of August, even in preseason.
Ooh.
So, yes.
I hope
Okay.
you're right, Josh.
I
I
think
also really hope you're right.
I think Calvert-Lewin desperately needs a move away from the club.
He got injured again.
Everyone keeps talking about Calvert-Lewin like he's Jesus Christ the Redeemer when he's going to come back into this Everton team, but the guy hasn't played consistent football for the last 18 months. Like,
Well,
I
I
don't
think
think
he
he's
needs
this
to move
miracle
away.
solution that everyone thinks he is.
That's why I think he needs to move away. I think he needs to go somewhere where he's going to be like a contributing factor, or at least,
We used to go see the physio.
yeah, that's what I was
Physio
about to say,
FC.
where you can have like a physio who isn't awful. So don't send him to Leicester because we're not going to do anything with him. But I don't know. He needs somewhere that's going to be like, hey, come here. We're going to help you not destroy your legs every 30 minutes.
Yeah, because with all due respect to Everton, Neil Maupay does not inspire confidence as a goal scorer to me. Arnaut Danjuma inspires like this much more confidence just because I saw him score a goal at Spurs. But I just, it's easy to say when they haven't scored a goal in 2 games, but how are they going to score goals? How are they going to score? They're not going to score. Set pieces, I guess. Dice ball. I don't know. But
The annoying thing is that I think Danjuma is a great footballer, but he's just the shiniest turd in the toilet bowl. So, like, it's just Josh. No, I literally look at their team and I'm like, okay, I think Onana is decent, Doucouré is decent. You can make a case for Idrissa Gueye, but these are not players who are gonna win you games. They need someone to win them games. They don't have them.
West Ham and Chelsea. 10 men West Ham. Yeah. Now, fans, please turn your attention to Stamford Bridge, where we will all point and laugh at Chelsea. Ha ha ha. Time for a quiz question before we begin. Only 2 players who have ever captained England in the modern era played Premier League games for both Chelsea and West Ham. Name one of the 2.
Who have captained England.
Yes. Played games in the Premier League for Chelsea and West Ham.
Fucking no.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Tim, no, he didn't play for them. Tim Cahill? No.
He's also Australian.
Yeah, you're thinking of Gary.
Wait, oh God, who am I thinking of?
Gary.
I think you're thinking of Gary Cahill.
Yeah, Gary's. Imagine having a name like Gary. After a snail.
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob.
I can't think of a single West Ham England captain besides. No, I don't even know any.
I mean, I know he played for both. Michael Bollock. Is that?
He's German.
Is he really? Oh,
yeah.
Has Declan Rice ever thrown the armband on? And
he's never played for Chelsea.
I said, would he count?
He's from West Ham's academy.
I thought he was from. Who am I thinking of?
I'll give you guys a hint. He was very recently a manager in the Premier League. One of the 2. Actually, both of them were very recently. Yes, Lampard.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
what were you going to say?
I didn't know he played for West Ham.
Parker, but I don't think
Parker was the other correct answer.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
When did Lampard play for West Ham?
Before he played for Chelsea, actually.
Yeah.
So
who was the other one? Scott Parker?
Scott Parker was the other one. He played a very small number of games. Once again, Josh is not looking at you, but Ethan was trying to give you a high five. But once again, you guys have combined to get the 2 correct answers, which is crazy. So, yeah, Frank Lampard and Scott Parker. How are Chelsea getting outnumbered and outworked in midfield by a team with 10 men? And when they have 300 million pounds worth of midfielders on the pitch once Caicedo came on?
I think this is a case where, similar to United in the Spurs game, they just couldn't finish because, I mean, they had 75% possession in this game. How did they lose 3-1? I thought there was just a couple players who should have done better. Jackson, I think he's been disappointing, especially after preseason. He looked really good.
Yeah, he's fast, but he can't finish.
Yeah. Sterling, I thought, had a great game, just couldn't put the ball in the net. And then, Chukwuemeka gets on the goal sheet, then gets injured. So it's like they've got a guy who can score, and then he gets injured. So, and then, I think West Ham were just grafting all over him. Chelsea just kind of gave up.
Yeah, well, and not to mention Mudrake, when he came on, had the world's first ever backward shot. I can't wait to see that on the XG graphic. My God.
Can you go into negative on XG if you boot it the other way? Because that's got to be
it's
point. It has to be 0.01 for West
Well, it's
Ham.
based on the position where he was taking the shot from, not actually. Well, honestly, though, for post-shot XG, maybe there is. It's possible that it was negative XG. It's more likely to go in his own net than it was to go in the opposition net. But
I think it should be. I think that would make me happy.
Anyway.
I'm going to name two players who, by themselves, outworked Chelsea's entire team, and that's Antonio and Paqueta.
Paqueta's a bitch to play against, too, by the way. I didn't realize how much of an annoying piece of shit he is.
I literally wrote down Paqueta fantastically annoying. That's what I wrote.
But it works perfectly. I mean, it's a perfect role for him to play in that West Ham team, especially in a game like this. He's just a disruptor, an agitator, a shit disturber, as they say.
A lot of names.
Yeah, I know. And Antonio, of course, you could apply all of those titles to him as well, because he's been that for his entire career. I mean, it's how he's made his living. So
also could be Antonio Conte.
Yeah, but he's more of like a dictator.
I was more talking about the shit stirrer,
Guantanamo Bay level, that kind of thing. So anyway, Reese, on another note for West Ham, by the way, we mentioned that Ward-Prowse, who is their marquee signing thus far this season, was somewhat of a non-factor.
Yeah. Although I think they got exactly what they bought him for. I thought in the game he kind of was non-existent. Although you buy him, I think you mentioned this last episode.
Yeah.
You buy him for dead balls. You buy him for dead balls. And he got an assist from a corner, and then he got another assist, which not technically a dead ball position, but it was like a random back pass that he had all the time in the world to just play a long ball over the top. So it was essentially a free kick. That's what it functioned as. So I think despite being largely absent, he got on the score sheet with 2 assists, or he got in the assist sheet, I guess. He registered 2 assists in this game without me even noticing him. And I think that's why they signed him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should clarify, I said he was a non-factor. I mostly mean in terms of impact on open play.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is something that we talked about when he signed as well, because that's sort of the impact that he has is in set piece situations, like you mentioned. I do worry that in a situation where they're not you know what? I was going to say that where they're not outnumbering Chelsea, but they were outnumbered by Chelsea. So never mind. I'm going to back that one right up. Moises Caicedo made his debut. It was not a great debut.
Bad debut.
Came in, had several giveaways, several turnovers, gave away a penalty. Not a good showing.
Almost gave away a goal and then did give away a goal with the penalty. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Interestingly, his counterpart, who was also 100 million pounds or something around there, missed his penalty to tie the game. So,
and Reese and I both were, and probably Ethan, probably you guys too, were just sniffing a miss when he stepped up to take that penalty as well.
Why is he on penalties?
I don't know.
Surely there's someone else who's better. I cannot believe, I will not believe that he is their best penalty taker.
Now, I mean, I would rather have Sterling take a penalty.
That's what I was thinking
I
too.
I was going to take it.
Yeah. So anyway, strange decisions all over. Let's move on from this game, just because I'm tired of talking about West Ham and Chelsea. I hope they both get relegated. Crystal Palace played host to Arsenal. It was a 1-0 defeat, but I am going to start with Ethan from the Crystal Palace side. Arsenal, of course, did play very well up until the sending off, which was controversial in nature. My question is essentially, are you annoyed that Palace got nothing out of this game?
I'm very much annoyed. I mean, I was trying to think of the positives because I feel like we did do a good job, limiting Arsenal to that one goal and it only coming from a penalty. So I think we did good to hold them back. Obviously they had to deal with the red card, which was unfortunate because I think it was very much not a red card. Well, I mean, it was a second yellow, but it was not really a foul. But we dominated possession at the end, and I feel like every time we had the ball and we're looking to get it in the box, we just couldn't get anything. Thinking about the game, cannot think of a time where we looked close to scoring a goal in that time period where we had more men on the field. So very disappointing, and it just made me realize how much help we need in this last week of the transfer window.
Reese, I think refereeing decisions aside, I think obviously the time wasting yellow that Tomiyasu got is probably an amalgamation of the entire team, and he's just the fall guy. And then
yeah, I mean, they even showed the replay. It was actually Havertz who was wasting time there. Like he was holding the ball for a really long time and then gave it to Tomiyasu. I think they counted. The commentator was saying Tomiyasu was only holding the ball for like 6 seconds or something like that.
Yeah,
but I don't even care about the time wasting one. And Ethan was saying, like, it just wasn't even a foul.
It's not a foul.
Crazy.
Yeah,
it just wasn't even a foul. And the issue is
a
fail. It wasn't even a foul. The issue is that since it was a second yellow, they can't review, which it's just like, I don't know. I don't know how that decision happened. I will say Palace probably should have had a penalty later on. I think I can entertain the argument that it wasn't a penalty. I would have been upset if it wasn't given. I think in the nature of the game, it was a makeup call. I think that's honestly what it is. I think it probably balanced out. And then, it's like, y'all don't get the penalty, but you're still a man up, right? So the makeup call's there. And like Ethan was saying, yeah, it was just, I mean, we subbed on so many defensive players and we really grafted out the win, which I think is great to see from an Arsenal perspective, but it is a little worrying for y'all. And I think you mentioned this to me when we were watching the game, is that y'all have no depth in attack, like none at all. You're chasing the game a man up and you sub on youth academy prospect Raksaki. Like, it's just not really inspiring. And I thought he did fine, but he can't be the guy you're relying on in that moment.
Right. And Mateta had something happen with his knee, but he's also been linked on a move away. But like, we're really, scraping the barrel for attack. Like the fact that we're having to play Schlupp on the wing is annoying. And it's just, it's not brimming with confidence. I mean, we did get to keep Elise on signing a new contract, and we've got Frensa coming back soon, but it's like, we need stuff to happen now because it's not guaranteed that they'll be back anytime soon. And even if when they are here, we still need more to make up the numbers. So it's very worrying, but trying to take as much positives as I can.
But yeah, I think it was kind of a mixture of that. Y'all just couldn't really generate many chances. But I did think Arsenal, I thought we defended really well at the end of the game. Obviously, we had a lot of defensive players on, but I think, something we've seen it a couple times. There's been a couple games last season included where the team just has to defend for a long time. In this case, it ended up being like 20, 30 minutes or 20.
It was 30.
Yeah, 30 minutes because it was
30 with the added time.
No, I think it was 30 with added time because the red card happened in the 67th.
Yeah.
And then there was 7 minutes of added time.
Okay.
So 30 basically defending for 30 minutes. Which requires a lot of focus. You can't really make any mistakes. And I think the team did a really good job. I thought the substitutions, although they're kind of obvious, right? Just stick on all your defensive players were good. I thought he did the right ones. The other thing too, that is a really great sign is that Zinchenko came in towards the end of the game and looked phenomenal. I mean, it was like kind of out of nowhere. He got subbed on. We'd been under pressure for probably 15 minutes at this point, just soaking up pressure. Immediately Zinchenko comes on and we're able to not only hold possession, but hold possession in Palace's half for, I mean, not a super long time, but probably 5 minutes, just killing time. So that was really, really big and really good to see as well, because he'll be back for the next game.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen, before I pose you the quiz question?
Hit me with the quiz.
Arsenal and Crystal Palace played out a 1-1 draw in early 2020, just before the onset of the pandemic. What striker scored a goal and got sent off in the match?
Aubameyang.
It was Aubameyang. I don't remember what the
that.
red card was for. Do you remember?
Yeah, he stepped on somebody, I think.
Okay.
Stepped on their calf. At the time, I don't even remember.
I think it was Van Aanholt,
Yeah, I think
because I remember IU scored a deflection goal.
I think at the time it was one of those where normally I'd be like, yeah, it's a red, but I think something similar had happened where I was mad, or maybe not even in that game, like something the week before where we didn't get a beneficial call. I think I was mad at that. That's why I remember.
Yeah, I remember that game.
All right, gentlemen. With that, we bring to a close our analysis section of the podcast, and we're going to move quickly on to Album of the Week from Ethan.
Did Leicester play this weekend?
They did, but due to my upcoming commitment, I'm going to have to call into the show.
Okay, yeah, I'll make it quick then. While Gage had us thinking about this segment at the beginning, I spent actually a lot of time thinking about it just because my brain is so small. So I ended up listening to a lot of jazz today. And so I've got a few of my favorite jazz records. I'll go real quick. Chet Baker sings, love it. Dave Brubeck, Take Five. Yes. Count Basie, love them all. I'm the jazz man today.
Josh, shout out to Leicester, who picked up a 3-1 win. Apologies for having to cut it short, but
That's all right. So jersey of the week. I don't know if I've shown this one yet, but it is a Detroit Tigers Miguel Cabrera jersey that I got in May. I think I wore it the day of the wedding because I think I got it the day before and I wanted to wear it.
You did wear that the day of the wedding.
You did, yeah.
It's just a clean, classic jersey. I like the.
He wore that to his wedding, by the way.
Yeah, that was his
At the altar, he was wearing that. Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, everyone. We want to say a huge thanks to you for coming along and listening. I want to say a huge thanks to the guys for joining me tonight. It's been a real pleasure to get to discuss things with you. Ethan, thanks for coming along.
Yep, it's good to be back. Good for another episode, and glad the Premier League's back.
Reese as well. Thanks for coming in, espousing some more nonsense as always.
Of course. Thanks again once again for hosting.
Oh.
Also coming up with these new little
segments and
exercises, and yeah, it's extra work, but I think it definitely improves the show.
I'm having fun with it, so I'm enjoying coming up with them. Josh, of course, newly moved into the new house, newlywed, newly in a new state. We appreciate you carving out the time for us to chat with you on the podcast.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to come on. I also really am enjoying the new little like mini quizzes and the mini new segments. I think it adds a lot of fun to it.
Hopefully you, the listeners, feel the same way. If you have any ideas for new segments as well, feel free to put them in the comments below. Follow us on social media at SLAPcastPL. You can get in touch with us there as well. We want to say a huge thank you to you for listening. We hope you're all safe. Stay healthy. We hope you're enjoying the Premier League. And it's a goodbye from us.